Jacksonville Jaguars, next team up on our previews list, and this is my favorite team. So full disclosure right away, there could be a little bias here. Now, I've been doing this a couple of years, and I've been pretty spot on both times. So while I might be a little more positive than normal, I still definitely think that we are on this team pretty well. Now, last year, they sucked again. Wow. And a lot of it can be blamed on the whole Urban Meyer situation. Obviously, he came in, was unequivocally a horrible coach, and more importantly, I think schematically was just so far behind compared to the modern NFL that he just killed this team. They didn't really have a chance to compete regardless of what they did. However, just because they moved on doesn't mean the damage is done and gone, right? So there's a chance that some of that carries over to this year, and we'll see how good this team actually is. But obviously, that's what we're here to talk about. So losses-wise, personnel, Brandon Linder, definitely the big one here. Really good player. Jaguars Hall of Fame guy, probably. Retired. That sucks. It is what it is, though. DJ Chark, the other name on this list I care about, which we'll get into what an idiotic decision that was once we get to the offense. Defensively, Malcolm Brown gone. He actually played really well last year. That's too bad. It is what it is. Miles Jack also is going to hurt. So they bring in some interesting players. Brandon Scherff is good. Now, he's more of a lateral move from Andrew Norwell than I think most Jaguars fans are expecting, but that's not a negative. Both of those players are like actively really good players. Zay Jones is a good player. We'll talk about him more. Christian Kirk. I am going to talk about him once we talk about the offensive depth chart and the wide receivers more, but I'm just going to get out in front and say if you're expecting positive things said about Christian Kirk, the football player, in this video, you will be disappointed. Defensively, though, these players are so much better. All these guys are really good. The draft class, obviously another first overall pick. Is Trayvon Walker going to be good? You know, who knows? I don't like to talk about rookies because everybody's wrong, basically. We'll see how good he is pretty much the second he steps on an NFL field. It's generally how that works. The good news is that almost all of these top 5 pass rushers over the last probably decade have worked out really well. Guys like Myles Garrett, the Bosa brothers, have come in and made day one impacts, and the Jaguars probably need that. They do probably have at least 2 other starters on this page, which, we'll see how that goes with rookies. But here we are with the offense. First, let's get the run game out of the way. Obviously, it doesn't really matter that much, but it's still interesting to talk about, and it's kind of a quicker thing. So this offensive line in the run game is pretty good. They have been for a couple of years. Their downfall has been in a lot of other areas, but Cam Robinson is a positive on that side of the ball. Brandon Scherff, again, is a good player there. Now, the rest of these guys are definitely worth talking about more. Ben Barge last year, as a rookie, was okay when he played. More importantly, I think he definitely showed that he doesn't suck, even over a large number of snaps, and sometimes, especially a guard, that's all you can ask for. But he's not necessarily positive. Luke Fortner, a third-round rookie, who knows, if he's going to be good. There have been good rookie offensive linemen fairly recently coming through more and more. So that is, again, good news in the general trends of things, but is that, that's no guarantee that he himself is good. Juwan Taylor. Now, you will hear people talk shit about Juwan Taylor, especially Jaguars fans, more than it blows my mind how much people are negative about this guy because, just frankly, he's not that bad. He's just not. He does occasionally have highlight losses, but really, if you look at any offensive lineman in the NFL outside of the really elite guys, you will find just as bad, if not significantly worse, plays on their tape pretty consistently. Juwan Taylor, as a running game offensive tackle, is just fine. Doesn't create a lot of push. That's definitely the weaker aspect of his game. Not going to say he's this big positive or anything, but again, he doesn't suck. Walker Little also played right at the end of the season. He looked okay. Small sample size. I don't want to make too big of conclusions based on it, but I'm actually fairly confident in saying that he could come in and start games and not suck as well. And sometimes, as we are going to talk about a lot with this team, that's a place you have to start before you get into the actual good teams in the NFL. You got to start with guys that just don't suck so bad. This run game as a whole, probably going to be decent. These guys have worked together mostly as a unit for at least couple years, especially tackle, and Doug Pedersen does have a penchant for running the ball. He did it really well in Philadelphia, albeit with a much better offensive line, and these running backs are really, really, really good. One of the best running back rooms in the NFL. So that's positives. More importantly, though, let's talk about the pass game. So offensive line, again, most important place to start. Can this line offensively pass protect? I would, again, probably say yes. Cam Robinson definitely has issues against the elite pass rushers in the NFL, and that's going to continue to be the case. That's just who he is as a player. But, there's only a few of those. That's why they're elite. And if he's not against something like that, he actually is pretty good. And that's really, again, a really similar tale with Juwan Taylor. The dude, will get beat by better edges, and his threshold is definitely lower than Cam Robinson's is. But he rarely gets absolutely smoked. And generally, the sacks, the bad things that have been attributed to him were a lot more cases of the quarterbacks he's been playing around and or the offense that he's in. So while I'm not going to go out here and say he's this amazing player, he is probably an NFL starter. Not a great compliment, but it's better than you'll hear people talk about him. Walker Little, too. Again, I already mentioned this. I think he's good. On the interior, we'll see. I bet they're going to struggle with, the big elite interior guys who push the pocket, especially they don't even have to be elite, just really strong guys. Just with Fortner being a rookie, Ben Barge clearly not having high-end NFL play strength. That's going to be a problem. But overall, I do think this offensive line, they can do okay. So then we got to talk about Trevor Lawrence. This is probably what, if you're watching this, you kind of been waiting for, because he's obviously the most important question. Is Trevor Lawrence good? And after his rookie year, I am not incredibly discouraged, but I'm also not particularly excited about him. And as a Jaguars fan, that sucks to say. But the truth is that what he put on film last year, the way he played, was a lot closer to a Jared Goff than it was to a Justin Herbert. Now, he did do things really well occasionally, or specifically. He does obviously have, top 1% arm strength and arm talent just in general, as far as being able to place the ball really far down the field at times, making these incredible throws on the run, that type of stuff, cool. But that's not what makes a good NFL quarterback, and the stuff that is, as far as reading a defense, making quick decisions, that stuff, Trevor Lawrence was a lot more hit or miss. Now, he wasn't horrible at it, I will say. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be one of the worst quarterbacks in football, which, again, that's not an ideal statement about the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. But it is a place to start, and he was in a absolutely unbelievably bad offense last year. Urban Meyer, like I said, he just ran college stuff from the mid-2000s, it felt like, and it didn't work at all. He was putting so much on this young quarterback's shoulders behind a not particularly great offensive line with not particularly great receivers, and that showed in the production. So there is a chance that with the transition from Urban Meyer to Doug Pedersen, things get way better really, really quickly, and you see really a lot of positives from Trevor Lawrence, much in the same way that Jared Goff did with Sean McVay. I don't expect to that level, of course, but I just want to point out that doesn't guarantee Trevor Lawrence is actually a good quarterback. But yeah, he does throw with anticipation. He can fit balls in really tight windows. He occasionally will take positive shots down the field, but none of that is anywhere close to the point where I would have hoped it would have been at this point, even already through 1 year. And sometimes the dude just misses. He's not very accurate. And that's scary. His balls tend to drift high, kind of similar to a young Cam Newton. And most quarterbacks don't really get that much better as far as accuracy goes. Once they get to the NFL, they've been throwing so much already by that point. Now, that's not completely exclusive to the concept for him, but I'm definitely not encouraged necessarily. He also is probably more impressive with his legs than he was with his arm. That part I do need to speak positively about. Trevor Lawrence was really good, not just good for a pocket quarterback or good for a rookie or whatever. He was actively one of the, probably 5-10 best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. And in a lot of ways, it was really similar to Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the positive side of the spectrum for him. He was somebody that I also had a lot of these problems, but did show enough that I was pretty positive about Josh Allen after his rookie year as far as becoming really good. And that obviously is what ended up happening. He better than I thought he was going to be, but he's a fairly similar trajectories. I think something you can hope for with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think it's impossible because Josh Allen still struggles with the same accuracy that he did, but he got so much better about reading the field, and he got into a much better offense, and it ended up with him being, an MVP candidate. Trevor Lawrence does have reasonable similarities to that. it's just not something I expect to manifest necessarily this year. So the rest of this offense, or the offensive weapons, what do you have? Do I start with Christian Kirk or not? Well, I'll do it. I'll get it out of the way. Christian Kirk sucks. He's just not very good at football. And it'd be one thing to pay a receiver a market resetting contract if they were going to come in and actually be your number one receiver. But realistically, Christian Kirk is like the fourth best receiver on this roster. Third. And that's not something you want to pay for. Now, why does Christian Kirk suck? So he doesn't suck like compared to everything. He's just compared to actual good NFL receivers, right? The reason is he has no physicality to his game whatsoever. For somebody who is really fast and physically quick, he does not win in routes in a way that you would expect. And while that draws a lot of parallels to the way I talk about Tyler Lockett, the difference is that Tyler Lockett does all those things and then is the best after the routes, a secondary break, whatever receiver in the NFL, and Christian Kirk's one of the worst. He can't track the ball barely to save his life most of the time. If he's in a contested catch situation, it's not going to go well, very likely. Now, he does have a couple high real catches, and that's because he is a receiver that does like probably belong in the NFL, and if you threw the volume that you had at a lot of these guys at him, or at volume that he got at a lot of these other guys, I bet you they would make similar plays. But what does he bring for if he's going to have to be on the team, right? Well, he is definitely really fast. He will force defenses to bend around him a little bit just because he's so fast, and with Trevor Lawrence's arm strength, that is a potential connection. He is not horrible as like an in-route, in-step wide receiver. He's just not that good. Okay, I'm trying to be positive, I swear. So like he can win at times. He's supposed to win. If you ask him to run a crossing route, he can do that just fine, all that type of stuff. And after the catch, again, he does have the athleticism to at least create yards running in a straight line. So it's not like he is a useless player. The money is just wild. But the other guys on this roster, I can be a lot more positive. Marvin Jones is awesome still. He kind of falls into similar issues as far as he's not like consistently going to win on routes that aren't like schemed in a way that forces him, that gets him to win by himself. But he can do it a reasonable amount. He will get open over the course of a play. He has amazing hands, one of the best contested catches wide receivers in the NFL. And he's actually pretty decent after the catch, too. He's a solid number 2 veteran receiver who is a positive to an offense that he's playing in. They bring over Zay Jones. Zay Jones is awesome. He is the second best receiver on this team. Zay Jones has been underrated for a long, long time because he was really bad as a rookie with the Bills. And what he does, he wins and he gets open. He does the number one thing. I always talk about this with receivers. He does the number one good thing you can do, which is he beats corners actively and runs into space in a way that creates openings for the quarterback. Now, he actually struggles in a lot of the same ways that Christian Kirk does, as far as he's really, really not physical. He really struggles to actually make contested catches or to play through contact. But at a point when you're talking about this classification of wide receiver, you got to take what you can get, and Zay Jones is good. Jamal Agnew was actually really positive as an offensive weapon for them last year. His receiver skills are better than I was expecting. He's not like a disaster when asked to do simpler route tree stuff. And he definitely has that juice, the fire after the catch. The dude makes plays. Laviska Shenault, not a good second year last year. That's because he doesn't have the lateral agility to get open in the NFL, which is going to continue to be a problem his whole career. He offers okay things after the catch, but for somebody at his size who doesn't have the speed laterally to also not be able to like have hands or win like in physical situations. And when I say contested catches too, it's not all about like mossing people, right? It's about like running a curl route, having the defender corner coming through your back and still catching the ball. He just can't really do that. Maybe he'll get better. I don't have a lot of faith in that. Laquan Treadwell is whatever. He's fine. He actually can be on an NFL field way, way better than he looked like when he was cut from the Vikings however long ago. But not really a positive to your offense. Tight end wise, you do have Dan Arnold, who has been underutilized in every offense he's been in. He's really good as a receiving tight end, very specifically, effectively a wide receiver, but he still gets matched up on safeties, tight ends, or safeties or linebackers, and he fucking kills them. So he's still positive. They bring over Evan Ingram, too, who, listen, Evan Ingram has his drop issues. He always will. But the dude smokes bad defenders and or defenders with less speed, athleticism than him, kind of like the way that Dan Arnold does. Actually, Evan Ingram does it way, way worse. He just is even worse as a blocker and has even worse. Whatever. I'm not going to get too much into that. The point is, actually, as a low-risk back-end signing, Evan Ingram could be really, really good for this team because he does offer a matchup issue and a guy who can win through the interior of the field that they don't really have otherwise. So, yeah, this offense, they don't really have a high end. I don't see at this point the offensive line is not good enough to carry what is effectively an average to below average rest of the offense. But there is hope, and it's definitely better than it has been the last few years, even just on the point of consistency as far as like not going 3 and out every other possession. And again, to not suck so bad, you got to start by not sucking at all in the first place. And the Jags, I do think, have done a good job as far as, and you'll see that this year, as approaching that point. So then we get to the defense. Now this, I'm going to be a whole lot more positive about because compared, again, to the Jaguars' defenses of the last few years, they got a chance to be pretty decent. So let's talk about them as a run defense first. They are awesome along the front. Their front three can compete with just about any across the rest of the NFL. Roy Robertson-Harris was hurt for a lot of last year, so people might not have realized how good he is, but let me tell you, he is that dude. As long as he stays healthy this year, the guy makes plays at a really high level. He gets into the backfield. He's really strong. He's really good. Devon Hamilton has very quickly become one of the absolute best nose tackles in the NFL, not just a big fat guy. He can move offensive linemen around. He can actually make plays on the running back in the back. And they bring over Falaransu Fatukasi from the Jets, who actually really similar player to Devon Hamilton. He's awesome. He's been awesome for a long time. And those three, they're eating, especially on the run front. Adam Gotsis, too, they finally realized after inexplicably cutting him at the beginning of last year, the dude can play. He's a really good run defender. Dwayne Smoot is a good veteran in that aspect. They got depth. They got talent. Josh Allen, as an edge player, one of the best edge defenders in the entire league, run-wise. And, Trayvon Walker. So we do have to talk about him because he is a first overall pick, and he's going to play a lot of snaps on this team. People freaked out and said he was really good from the Hall of Fame game and stuff. I disagree with that, but I also don't care one way or the other because it's just a preseason game. It doesn't really matter as far as what he's going to do on an actual NFL field. And if there's one thing that at his size, strength profile, plus what he did in college, it seems to be at least trustworthy, is that he's going to be a good edge run defender, which is huge for this team because last year they were getting gapped because while they had the greats on one side with Josh Allen, the other side was an absolute disaster. And Trevor Walker is going to fix a lot of that, or seems likely to. They don't have depth at that position for sure. K'Lavon Chaisson, I'm just going to get out of the way. The guy just can't play football. He's so weak. He has no moves. He's just not in the right place very frequently. And if it tells you anything, his best use as a first-round pass rusher is as a off-ball coverage linebacker against, I guess, running backs leaking out of the backfield is the best thing he's best at. That's a disaster of a pick. Whatever, it is what it is. And then an interior linebacker, while they're nowhere near as good as Miles Jack, who's gone from this team now, Foyesade Oluokun, he's a good player. And while as a run defender, I think he's whatever, he was stuck behind a horrible Atlanta Falcons defensive line for the last few years. And with more strength in front of him, more space to make plays on the ball carrier, I do think he could be decent. Plus a first-line linebacker, we'll see, rookie, whatever. But as a whole, this run defense does look really good, especially along the front. So as a pass defense group, too, they got a chance to be reasonable. Pass rush-wise first, they do have enough talented guys on the interior to bring something there, especially, again, Roy Robertson-Harris. He is that dude. Just watch if he stays healthy. And Josh Allen is a high-end player himself. Now, he's not elite or anything, which is unfortunate, but he's so good at other things. You'll take him on your team 10 times out of 10. But a lot of their pass rush comes down to Trayvon Walker, obviously. And again, I've mentioned it before. There is a history of these high ends pass rushers getting drafted and being pretty good right away. If that is the case, then this pass rush is really good because if you're talking about 2 good edge rushers plus the real pocket push in front of them, you're onto something. If he's not that good, they'll still probably be okay, but obviously less so. Then as a secondary, Ooh, man, they're real close. So I did criticize the Shaquille Griffin signing last offseason, and I will continue to do so. He got paid too much money for a guy who can only cover big receivers. But he does do that well. And as opposed to these other bigger, slower corners on the outside, he's not like a complete disaster against the actual good receivers. Like he'll still get cooked by like Devontae Adams or something, but, oh well, so does literally everybody. I will be super complimentary, though, of the Darius Williams signing. Darius Williams is a player way back before he broke out on the Rams. I was like, man, this dude's awesome when he was, I'm not trying to toot my own horn too much, but he played about the last 3 games of the season, a lot of snaps 3 years ago for the Rams, and he was amazing. And then he came into that year, and I talked about how good he was going to be, and he ended up being a first-team All-Pro. And he's continued to be that good. He's awesome. Even though he's a little smaller, he has no problems fighting through his size to consistently stick with people. If anything, I think it helps him because he's so quick laterally, and the dude is awesome. And Tyson Campbell, man, I think there's a chance Tyson Campbell is an elite corner in the NFL. Last year, I don't know if unlucky is the word, but he did give up a lot right at the catch point while still being there, getting his hands on the football, on the offensive player, right, as they're catching the ball. And while that can be a problem in of itself as far as not playing the catch point so well, it's actually something I think if there's anything that's likely to get better or more lucky with, it's that. And the more important part of it as far as not getting smoked, he was really good at. He was sticking with guys all the time, and I'm talking good players. Tyson Campbell, I think there's a chance as like a really, really, really good corner. And at the very least, I'm very confident he's a solid NFL starter. So that's 3 like really good players as far as a 1 through 3 cornerback depth chart goes. And safety-wise, you're okay. Rayshon Jenkins is fine. He's not a playmaker really, but he doesn't suck. He can be on a field. He can be a starter on a decent defense. And Andre Cisco, showed things as a rookie last year that he can also work on and get better and springboard from to be a decent player. He's still got a little bit out of position, just simple rookie stuff, but especially by the end of the year where he was really getting snaps, there's something to him as a starter in the NFL. I do got to mention, though, the depth on this team in the secondary is horrendous. Andrew Wingard is still the worst player on an NFL roster. It is like a non-starter. It's basically impossible to win games if he's on the field for you. I would very comfortably argue is the biggest reason the Jaguars have like a 10% winning percentage or worse over the last 3 years. He's just so bad. He cannot keep up with anybody. Again, I'm not trying to like personally attack the guy, but just if you really watch why they were losing games, he just would get ran around every 2 plays. It's horrible. Whatever. He shouldn't be playing on this team anymore, hopefully. Kind of the same thing with Trey Herndon. He's not like that level of bad. The Jags like him, whatever, maybe he's good in the locker room. Also, you just can't stick anybody in coverage. So that depth is really, really scary. But as far as the starters go, as a whole, on this defense, you're looking at a pretty good unit, especially by Jaguar standards. I'm still concerned with them playing like the actual good teams in the NFL. And with the offense being as so-so as it is, I do think there's a chance they get on the field more than they really should be, and it makes their numbers look worse than they are. But they do have talent on this side of the ball. So when you look at the schedule, I think the things you're worried about are basically it's line play for this team. It's elite offensive lines who are going to be able to handle the Jaguar strength of defense and then expose the secondary as we get further into the season. And then elite defensive lines who hurt the meh but not great parts of the offensive line and make Trevor really kind of default into some of the bad stuff from last year. And unfortunately, they kind of start off with 4 in a row that might give them those exact problems between the Commanders, DeForest Buckner very specifically with the Colts, the Chargers and their new guys, and the Eagles. That's tough. But after that, it does get a lot easier, and I do think there's a chance this team, well, not a chance, I pretty much guarantee you this team is going to be significantly more competitive than they have been the last 2 years. Are they going to end up winning a ton of games? I doubt it. But it's not impossible, and with the way coin flips go in the NFL, 7 wins is definitely not out of the realm of possibility. And for the Jaguars, as far as building like actual long-term success, that's a good place to start. So that's the 2022 Jacksonville Jaguars.